Why, hello there, I'm Professor Joel, and welcome to another episode of Planet Scooby Reviews. Today we are covering a Bumpsteer for Scooby, and this episode originally aired on November 20th, 1976, and it was episode 11 of the first season of the Scooby-Doo Show. And here we see the gang visiting Daphne's Uncle Matt at the Lazy S Cattle Ranch in Texas, where the gang encounters a ghostly Medicine Man and Tamuka, the flying ghost bull. I have no trivia for this one, but this was the first Scooby-Doo episode I ever reviewed, and I got my first subscriber with this episode, and that was Milan. Milan, if you're watching, I hope I'm saying your name right. Thank you for subscribing, being my first subscriber. Thank you for commenting on every episode I put out. I really appreciate your support, and I appreciate everyone's support who watches and shares and comments and all the like. But I just wanted to give a shout out to Milan because he was my first subscriber, and it just gave me that push to keep on going, because I figured, I made this video, not the best video, but someone liked it, and I'm going to keep putting stuff out because this person liked it and other people started to like it, and now, I got a pretty good following and I got pretty good views, so thank you to everyone. Anyway, before I, get all soppy again, I just wanted to say, this was my first video that I ever did. I don't have the old one up. It got hit with so many copyright strikes. It wasn't a great video. Didn't have a great microphone at the time. I was just using a webcam, and I didn't have myself in the intro. It was just the episode review. There's no score. So I thought it was about time to redo this episode, and I knew originally I would always redo it. I was just kind of like testing the waters. I didn't have any experience with video editing at the time. Very limited experience. And I just wanted to learn, and I knew it wouldn't be a great episode. So I picked an episode I liked, but I didn't love because, I didn't want to do my favorite episode and have to redo my favorite episode. So spoilers for my review below. This isn't a 10 out of 10, but it should get a pretty good review, right? It's classic Scooby-Doo. Anyway, enough of my jibber jabber. Let's get on with the review. The episode begins with the gang driving through the desert at night. The kids are on their way to visit Daphne's Uncle Matt at his ranch. Freddy soon slams on the brakes as in the sky he sees a flying bull ghost. The bull takes chase after the Mystery Machine, and they are able to evade it by driving through a mountain tunnel.
We're just a few miles from my uncle's ranch.
In the sky!
Creepers!
A flying bull!
You mean a flying ghost bull? Stop following us. Wait till Uncle Matt hears about this.
Well, gang, looks like we're riding into another mystery.
At the Lazy S Ranch, Uncle Matt tells Daphne that the bull is a local legend. However, his neighbor, Sam Farron, explains that 20 cows have disappeared from his ranch, with many of the workers stating that Tamuka, the flying bull they saw, took them. Sam explains that 1,000 years ago, cliff dwellers in the Hidden Valley had a burial ground that was guarded by Tamuka. And since, the ranchers have moved in and such, I guess Tamuka is seeking revenge. Mr. Blake, Daphne's uncle, still writes off Tamuka as a legend.
It really shook us up, Uncle Matt.
Uh-huh. A flying bull? Oh, that's just a local legend. Right, Sam?
I don't know, Matt. 20 cows vanished from our ranch without a trace. Some of the boys say Tamuka took them.
The flying bull you think you saw. 1,000 years ago, a tribe of cliff dwellers lived in Hidden Valley. According to the legend, their burial ground was guarded by the spirit of a flying bull, the ghostly Tamuka.
Lenny then appears, and we are introduced to him as the ranch's cook.
That's only Lenny, our cook. Rustle up some grub for our visitors.
We also meet the ranch foreman, Carl, who tells Mr. Blake his cows are missing. Uncle Matt heads off to let the sheriff know with Scooby and Shaggy, while Carl, Lenny, and Sam head off to find the missing cattle.
Creepers! Another monster!
Relax. That monster is my ranch foreman.
Mr. Blake, it's happened again. The cows in the south pasture, they're gone.
What? Tamuka must have taken them, like he took my cattle.
I'll ride into town and let the sheriff know what's going on.
I'll go with Carl.
Let's let's take a look at that south pasture.
Freddy, Daphne, and Velma decide to investigate the pasture where the cattle have disappeared. While driving to see the sheriff, Uncle Matt mysteriously disappears as his Jeep drives through the mountain tunnel. Scooby and Shaggy then have a small adventure heading back to the ranch to tell the others. At the pasture, the barbed wire fence has been cut with wire cutters. Freddy doesn't spot any hoof prints or tire tracks, making it even more mysterious. Before they can investigate further, Tamuka shows up and the trio race off in the Mystery Machine.
I don't see any horseshoe prints or tire tracks.
Why would a ghost open a fence with wire cutters?
Daphne, don't move.
Jinkies, it's crawling.
It's a prairie dog.
Look, it's that flying frightful again. Tamuka's got me.
Back at the ranch, everyone eventually reunite and Shaggy explains how Uncle Matt just vanished from the Jeep. Hopping in the Mystery Machine, the entire gang head off to where they first saw the flying bull. At this spot, they find cattle tracks, which they follow to Hidden Valley and its cliff caves and burial ground. Up in the cliffs, they are watched by a Medicine Man ghost.
Look, cattle tracks. And they appear right out of nowhere.
I'll follow him. Those are cliff dwellings just like in the legend.
This is Hidden Valley. Nobody's been here for 1,000 years. The cattle tracks end here.
That's funny. Truck tire tracks. Let's go.
On the ground, the hoof prints turn into tire tracks, which takes them to a herd of cows with a double O branded on them. Velma assumes they are the cows taken from Sam's ranch. A man on horseback shows up and tells the gang they are trespassing on Sam's ranch. The gang scoot away and then head back to the burial ground.
The tracks end in the middle of these cows.
Are these lazy S cows? No, this is the double O brand. These must be the cows that vanished from Sam's ranch.
What are you doing here snooping around these cows?
We tracked them here. They're the ones that vanished from Sam Farron's ranch.
This is Sam Farron's ranch and you're trespassing.
Freddy and the girls head into the burial mound while Shaggy and Scooby stand guard outside, and it doesn't take long for the ghostly Medicine Man to frighten them where they run into the burial mound. Inside the burial mound, the gang spot an ancient skull and skeleton. Meanwhile, Freddy finds the ghostly Medicine Man inside the cave, so they take cover in the cliff dwellings.
Relax. As you can see, it's only an ancient skull.
I found them. Shaggy, is that you?
I think I found something. Yipes! It's Tamuka! Run for your lives!
Separated in the confusion, Scooby and Shaggy come across the Medicine Man, and we get a fun little chase. Freddy and the girls also encounter the ghost who locks them in a room. Fortunately, there's a secret passage nearby to escape from.
Oh, like we gotta find a place to hide, Scoop.
From the cliff tops, Freddy, Daphne, and Velma see a herd of cattle run past. However, no cowboys seem to be controlling the herd despite them hearing voices of cattle ranchers nearby.
Get on, cow!
I heard cowboys, but I didn't see any.
Would you believe a talking cow?
Someone's following us. Scare them away.
They soon figure out that someone is dressed up as a cow as they eavesdrop in on a conversation between the Medicine Man and the talking cow. Exploring the caves, Scooby and Shaggy find a cow costume, so they dress up. Meanwhile, Freddy and the girls find a flying Tamuka machine that is basically a small helicopter dolled up to look like a giant bull. The gang tie the helicopter to the wall, preventing the Medicine Man from flying off. Freddy and Velma then figure out that the cattle rustlers were dressed as cows to control the cattle herd, while also scaring off anyone curious with the ghostly Tamuka. Freddy then creates a plan to use Scooby and Shaggy as a Trojan cow, where they use the cow costume to get themselves rustled. Following the truck that swipes Scooby and Shaggy, the gang encounter an operation where the S on Uncle Matt's brand is being covered with a double O brand. The cattle rustlers lasso Freddy and the girls, but the trio are then saved when Uncle Matt and the sheriff show up.
I warned you, we don't want no snoops around here.
And the same goes for cattle rustlers. The game's over, cowboy.
Uncle Matt explains that someone had yanked him out of the Jeep where he was held prisoner until he managed to escape. We learn the troublesome rancher who lassoed Freddy and the girls is Sam Foreman, and unmasking the medicine man, we discover it to be Lenny the cook. Finally, the cattle in disguise is unmasked, and it turns to be out Sam Farron. Someone else is in the cattle costume to act as Sam's back legs, but we never get that reveal. My guess it was Carl, who also drove off with Sam and Lenny, and Carl was one of Uncle Matt's ranching foremen.
Somebody yanked me out of the Jeep when Shag and I drove through the tunnel. I was held prisoner, but managed to escape.
And that's how they did it.
They branded the double O over the lazy S, leaving no trace.
The first one is Sam Farron's foreman. And this is...
It's Lenny the cook.
And this is... Sam Farron.
And we'd have got away scot-clean if it weren't for that pesky pair in the cow costume.
Uncle Matt drives the cattle home, and with another mystery solved, the gang head off on their next adventure. I give this episode a 7.5 out of 10. There's a lot I love about this episode. For one, I like the inside of the burial mound. It's very spooky, and you get that skull and the walking skeleton in there. And Tamuka, I didn't really find him scary, but it was cool that at least it turned out to be a helicopter for once and not just another projection. We've gotten so many projections, so it was cool to have a helicopter. Although I did think it was a projection at first because he didn't, the cave stopped it. And a helicopter could fly over a cave, but not in this case, I guess. I don't know. The Medicine Man looks cool as well, and I think they make him unique enough so he doesn't repeat the look of the Medicine Man we saw in Decoy for a Dog Napper. But it's also hard to ignore the idea that this material with rustlers has been covered before. We got rustlers in The Spooky Fog, and we got sheep rustlers in Who's Afraid of the Big Bad Werewolf. So, it's kind of repeating itself, but it's kind of hard not to do because there have been so many great episodes of Scooby-Doo that have already come out. And, I'm not that creative, so I'd be repeating myself pretty quickly too. Finally, the cliff dwellings, they made for an interesting location, and it was cool to see the gang run through the various caves. I enjoyed that situation quite a bit. The episode moves along at a quick pace. However, my biggest complaint, which is usually my complaint about other episodes, is that we just didn't get enough time to spend with Uncle Matt. I could have used a little more padding here. I would have appreciated an end scene where the gang just kind of sit down to a meal, a nice country ranch meal, or perhaps a longer intro where we just got to know Uncle Matt a little bit better. And I just felt a little bit of extra breathing room would have given us some more insights into Daphne's family. But of course, back then, they didn't really care about building character history and whatnot. Back then, they just kind of wanted us to relate to the characters. So I guess if you make characters as blank as possible with not much back history, you can make them more relatable. I don't know. So I guess that's why they didn't really, focus on more of her family. Anyway, so overall, I like this one. And again, I just found it a bit lacking to award it a higher score. Still, it's a fun little adventure. Moves fast, keeps you entertained, and it's a pretty cool episode. Anyway, I want to thank you again for any likes, views, subscribes, and shares. Always like hearing from you, but even if you don't comment, I appreciate the views, the likes, subscribes, all that. Keeps me motivated. Like I said, these episodes take a while. They take a big portion of my time. I do this for fun, but it sucks up a lot of free time, about 10 hours a week. And I'm happy to do it because you're always watching me every week. And, that keeps me happy. So anyway, next week when I will be covering a demon shark in the foggy dark, stay spooky.